In retirement, your paycheck can stop, but the mortgage often does not. For millions of older adults, that becomes the monthly stress test nobody wanted. Harvard's housing research says nearly 11.2 million older households were cost-burdened in 2021. That means housing swallowed at least 30% of income. For retirees, that is not just a number. It is pressure. It is anxiety. It is the feeling that one unexpected bill could throw everything off. And that pressure has only grown. Harvard also found that mortgage debt is no longer rare in retirement. From 1989 to 2022, the share of homeowners ages 65 to 79 carrying mortgage debt rose from 24% to 41%. For homeowners 80 and older, it jumped from 3% to 31%. That is a huge shift. More people are entering retirement with a payment that still waits every month. That was the turning point in this story. Instead of chasing a bigger house, the goal became something simpler, more predictable, more livable. The answer was a tiny home with a fixed monthly lot rent of $375. That number changed everything, because this retiree did not need to get rich. They needed to get predictable, and predictable housing can calm an entire retirement plan. With a tiny home setup, the house is yours, but the land is rented. In a stable community, that means one monthly lot payment replaces the crushing weight of a traditional mortgage. It also means less space to maintain, fewer repairs to panic over, and fewer bills fighting for attention at the same time. For someone on a fixed income, that matters more than square footage ever could. Think about the contrast. Harvard found older homeowners with mortgages had median monthly housing costs around $1,470. Older homeowners without mortgages were closer to $520. That difference is enormous. It can feel like nearly $1,000 a month just disappeared from the budget. For many retirees, that gap is the difference between surviving and actually breathing. That is why this story hits so hard. The old housing setup brought constant tension. Every payment felt heavy. Every repair felt risky. Every month started with a subtraction. But the new setup flipped the script. The $375 lot rent became a known number, a line item, a fixed point in a life that had felt too uncertain for too long. And once housing became simpler, everything else got easier too. Housing is the biggest slice of the average household budget. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says it accounted for 33.4% of total spending in 2024. That means if housing is unstable, the whole budget feels unstable. But when housing is controlled, retirement gains room to work. Groceries become easier to plan. Medical costs feel less terrifying. Even the fun stuff, the small joys, the occasional trip or dinner out, stops feeling irresponsible. That is the real power of a lower housing cost. It does not just save money. It creates margin. And margin creates peace. That is why tiny home living can feel so freeing for older adults who want to stay rooted in a community they know. AARP's 2024 survey found that 75% of adults 50 and older want to remain in their current homes as they age, and 73% want to stay in their communities. Tiny home living can support that same dream. It can mean aging in place without the burden of a giant house and a giant payment. Less house, more life. But there is an important truth here. Affordable does not mean automatic. Land lease communities can be a strong path to lower costs, but the details matter. Monthly lot rent can bundle more than just the land. It may include infrastructure, services, taxes, insurance, or amenities. That can simplify life. It can also hide complexity if you do not read the lease carefully. And rent can rise. That is why the fine print matters so much. The Manufactured Housing Institute notes that site rent has increased in recent years, and Fannie Mae estimates there were just over 44,000 manufactured housing communities in the U.S. as of mid-2024. That tells us something important. This is a major part of the affordability landscape. It is not a niche idea anymore. It is a real housing strategy for real people. But like any strategy, it works best when you protect yourself. Ask about the lease. Ask about future increases. Ask what is included. Get it in writing. That advice is not fear. It is freedom. Because the goal is not just to move into a tiny home. The goal is to protect the peace that tiny home can create. There is also a growing policy lesson here. The U.S. Government Accountability Office has flagged manufactured housing communities as part of the affordable housing picture, while also noting the growing role of investors. That means buyers need to stay alert. A low monthly payment is powerful, but only if the rules are clear and stable. Freddie Mac has required tenant protections on future community transactions it finances, including a 1-year renewable lease term, 30-day written notice of rent increases, and 60 days notice before a sale or closure. That is the kind of protection retirees should want to see. Because retirement should not feel fragile. It should feel steady. And that is exactly what happened here. The old mortgage was replaced by a simple $375 monthly lot rent. The budget became easier to read. The stress became easier to manage. The home became smaller, but the life became bigger. There was less debt hanging over every decision, less dread at the start of each month, less fear that retirement would be swallowed by housing costs. That is the hidden gift of debt-free living. It is not about having nothing. It is about owing nothing that controls you. When the housing payment is simplified, the mind gets quieter. When the mind gets quieter, retirement starts to feel like retirement again. Not a financial emergency, not a monthly scramble, just life on your terms. This story is proof that freedom does not always come from more income. Sometimes it comes from fewer obligations. Sometimes it comes from replacing a huge mortgage with one predictable monthly lot rent. Sometimes it comes from choosing enough. And enough can be a beautiful thing. So if you are approaching retirement, take this story seriously. Run the fixed cost test. Add up the full monthly number, including lot rent, utilities, insurance, and fees. Ask how rent increases work. Make sure the lease protections are clear. Then decide if the lower stress, lower debt, and simpler life are worth it. Because for this retiree, $375 a month did more than cover a lot. It unlocked peace of mind. It unlocked stability. It unlocked a debt-free retirement. Before you buy a tiny home, run the fixed cost test.